The 1994 Brickyard 400 was NASCAR's first race in Indianapolis and was one of its most important. The race was the organization's highest paying to that point. Not surprisingly, there were 86 entries going for the race's maximum of 44 starting positions. Of the 86 entered drivers, 8 of them had a theoretical advantage over their competitors, as they previously participated in the Indianapolis 500 at the track, including drivers that had never qualified for the 500. Of these drivers, 4 successfully qualified after having already done that for the 500. They will be highlighted. Of Brabham, 400's Racing. Brabham is perhaps the most surprising driver to be featured here. He had a respectable IndyCar career that included 9 podiums and a best championship ranking of 8th 3 times. At the 500, Brabham had 6 mechanical retirements and 2 failures to qualify out of 12 entries from 1981 to 1994. However, he did finish 5th in 1981 and 4th in 1983. By 1994, Brabham's IndyCar career was mostly over. 1987 was his last full season, and Brabham's only 1994 entry was failing to qualify at Indianapolis. However, Brabham's entry for the 400 went differently. Driving for the new 400's team, Brabham was attempting to make his NASCAR Cup Series debut at the first 400. Surprisingly, they managed to successfully qualify for the race in a respectable 18th place on pole day. On lap 10 in turn 3, Brabham was close behind Jimmy Spencer when he crashed and became the 400's first retirement. By lap 16, Brabham had dropped to 37th place. He continued to be around this position by being 38th on lap 30. Gradually, as drivers ahead of Brabham made pit stops, he moved up in the field. As Lake Speed used this strategy to lead, Brabham ran 5th on lap 45. 5 laps later, he pitted for the first time in a race and was running 4th. In the process of making a pit stop, Brabham went 1 lap down and was back to 37th position by lap 60. Brabham's struggle continued as he eventually lost another lap, but did move up to 36th place after 87 laps. However, Brabham did not lose any other lap or position over the following 21 laps. On lap 130, Brabham's race ended early when he crashed exiting turn 1 and was hit by Jimmy Hensley. Brabham finished 38th, and not only was his single Cup Series race, but his only NASCAR entry. John Andretti, Hagan Racing. Andretti is the only driver featured here that was a full-time NASCAR driver in 1994. He had competed in IndyCar from 1987 to 1994 and won at Surfers Paradise in 1991. Andretti had also qualified for the 500 each year since 1988. There, he finished in the top 10 4 times, topped by being 4th in 1991. In 1993, Andretti started to compete in the Cup Series and would become a full-time driver there in 1994 with Hagan. That year, Andretti became the first driver to compete in the 500 and World 600 in the same day. At Indianapolis, Andretti finished 10th, but was 36th at Charlotte after having a crankshaft failure with 220 of 400 laps completed. For the 400, Andretti qualified on the second day in 28th place. By lap 16, he had moved down in the field within 13 laps. Andretti had increased his position to 31st in the race. By the first pit stop sequence after 50 laps, Andretti himself had lost a lap and was in 37th position. This was the approximate pace that Andretti had for the race. After 87 laps, he lost another lap and was now in 35th. 20 laps later, Andretti was still 2 laps down, but had moved up to 30th position. He was the highest finishing 500 veteran at the inaugural 400 by finishing 2 laps down in 28th. Andretti continued to compete in the Cup Series through 2010 and had a best Indianapolis finish of 7th in 1998. He also returned to the 500 from 2007 to 2011. A.J. Foyt, A.J. Foyt Enterprises. Foyt was the best in IndyCar and, more specifically, the 500. In an IndyCar career that lasted from 1957 to 1993, Foyt won 67 races, 4 500s, and 7 championships, each of which are records through 2023. He also started to compete in the Cup Series in 1963. Foyt had won 7 races, including the 1972 Daytona 500. In a lead-up to the 1993 Indianapolis 500, Foyt announced his retirement from racing. However, at the age of 59 years, he would return to professional racing with his own team for the first 400. Foyt qualified for the field on the first day and was the slowest driver to get into the field via their speed. After starting 40th, Foyt was in 36th place on lap 16. Then, by lap 27, he had increased his position to 33rd. Voigt delayed his first pit stop and was battling for second with Harry Gant by lap 45 as a result. Voigt ran out of fuel and he slowly had to get back to his pit stall. After 50 laps, Voigt was 2 laps down in 41st place. He lost another lap within the following 10 laps. With 75 laps to go, Voigt was leading the lap drivers, but he struggled to maintain speed with the leaders. Voigt ultimately finished 4 laps down for the first 500 in 30th place. He entered the race the following 2 years, but Voigt failed to qualify for each of them. Danny Sullivan, Virtue Racing. Sullivan started to compete in IndyCar in 1982 and became one of the top drivers there. He won 17 races, including the 1985 500 Spin and Win victory, and also won the 1988 Series Championship. Besides winning the 500, Sullivan had finished in the 500 top 10 3 times. Furthermore, Sullivan won 3 other 500-mile IndyCar races. In 1993, Sullivan had an inconsistent season where he finished in the top 10 in just 4 of 15 races, but one of them was a win at Detroit. Following the season, Sullivan started to try NASCAR by doing a partial season. In the Cup Series, Sullivan failed to qualify in 1994 at Rockingham in Atlanta, and Indianapolis was his 3rd scheduled event. Sullivan was 5th in the qualifying line for the 400. He made attempts on both qualifying days and started the 400 in 26th position. On the 3rd lap, Sullivan lost a window. As his teammate repairs to Sullivan's car, he lost 5 laps. Afterwards, Sullivan continued to struggle. By lap 30, Sullivan was 6 laps down and had lost an additional lap by lap 50. Sullivan eventually went 8 laps down and he would finish like this in 33rd place. Sullivan's racing career mostly ended following a crash at the 1995 Michigan 500, which caused him to withdraw from that year's 400. The crossover between the Indianapolis 500 and the Brickyard 400 was rather limited. In 1995, 500 veterans entered the 400, however, only Andretti qualified. In 1996, he was one of only 2 500 veterans entered and, again, the only one to qualify. For the most recent 400 in 2020, only 2 of the starters, Kurt Busch and J.J. Yaley, each of whom were NASCAR regulars, had previously started the 500.